28th of August 2023. This news flash, I want to talk about some NATO madness, craziness or insanity. You can call it what you like, but they've lost the plot there. They started this war in the Ukraine. And for those that are following the channel and are still in denial about the fact that America and Europe, the West, are the reason for that war in the Ukraine, then you need to pull the skins of your eyes and go and get yourself better informed. And if you're under the impression that the war started last year in February, you need to go and take a cold shower. Fact of the matter is, this thing has been coming for a long time. But out of that Ukraine war and the associated sanctions against Russia, BRICS was pulled out from the drawer and put on the table. And now the West is in a flat fucking panic about BRICS. And I'm not saying that BRICS is going to de-dollarize the world or the globe or what overnight or something like that. All I'm saying is that BRICS offered an alternative, a working alternative for the Western death grip on the global economy. That is what BRICS did. And that is the plan. And I'm sure between Putin and Xi Jinping, they've got big plans for BRICS. But the reality is, the European economy is diving to the dumps. And a commentator came on my channel and made a lot of comments about I'm stupid for seeing the European economy going down and so forth, and the Europeans are well off and all that crap. And I just read it and I shake my head because that guy's in for a rude awakening. I cannot understand that he lives in Europe and he cannot see the chaos around him. But that's how it works. The mass media programs people so well that facts doesn't count. The story on the TV, that's the truth, not the facts on the. And now listen to this insanity. I call for a new major phase of decolonization to put an end to the last remaining empires. First of all Russia, then China. We need to prepare similar maps for all members of the BRICS, the new axis of evil. The President of the European Committee for NATO Development, Austrian Günther Fellinger, as the apogee of Russophobia, demands to break apart all BRICS countries and the states that have joined them so that they cannot resist NATO. Now, I've got news for this fucker. The world is done with these power blocks. They're done with them. NATO is a terrorist organization that should have been disbanded the same time the USSR broke up, because all the shit in Europe can be directly related back to NATO. And NATO is the spanner that the Americans, those warmongers in the shithouse, is using to manipulate Europe. And the European leadership is so fucking weak that they listen to the warmongers from the shithouse instead of looking out for the benefit of their own countries and their own citizens. Now, if you're a European citizen, you need to understand that the leadership that you have feels fuck all for you. To them, it's just the power. That's what it's about. And the control, not your welfare. And I've said it in many Skidmarks. The only way people can get out of this death grip of Triple X is to go back to tribal level. Go back to the tribes. It is the tribes that will survive. The reality is, Triple X is planning chaos and mayhem for the whole globe. And then the Chinese and the Russians told them to fuck off. And now more and more countries are flocking towards BRICS. And in BRICS, there is a general mood of looking out for themselves and driving the evil Western forces out of their midst. But this guy from NATO, look at this. I didn't want to pull all of it in details for you, but there are 6 countries on that screen. And for every one of those countries, they have made a plan and a decision on how those countries must be broken up into smaller areas so that they cannot resist NATO. The reality is the NATO nations need to fucking break up. Otherwise they're going to perish. But for me, this one was the best one when I saw this one. Socialist, corrupt South Africa, ally of the genocidal Russia, must be dismantled for ganging up in BRICS. Now I look at this little map that he gave there, and I see the Zulu Kingdom, and I see the Western Cape, and I see the Volksstaat Republic, but that's it. He's fucking crazy. He doesn't know what the realities of the ground is. That South Africa needs to break up in at least 9 to 14 pieces. Not the fucking 3 that he's got in his mind, because he doesn't know what's going on here. I wonder if he can point South Africa on a map. But the fact of the matter is, it's interesting that they want to break the Republic up. And with that, I have no problem. That's the only way South Africans are going to survive. Because the Republic of South Africa is actually a mini power block that is under control of Triple X through this selected, not elected, selected ANC cabal. The tragedy is that the ANC leadership doesn't represent any tribe or the people. They're there for the money and the power, and the people doesn't count. But from what I hear and from what I see, there is a tribal awakening in South Africa. And that is what will eventually allow certain groups in South Africa to survive. Tribal cohesion. The tribes need to make sure that they stand on their tribal lands and drive the Triple X out there. Politicians will not protect you. Politicians are planning of bundling more and more groups together because they are thriving for a society that is cosmopolitan and divorced from their culture and their tribes. So they are trees without roots. That is what Triple X wants, because that unrooted population can be manipulated, and if they threaten them, they cower down and listen. Whereas the tribes look at one another, and he knows his brother is standing next to him, shoulder to shoulder, and they tell Triple X, fuck off, where the cosmopolitans can't do it. And I have to touch this here again, because there's a lot of blacks in South Africa that are living in this utopia, that if they follow the instructions of Malema, it's going to be a walk in the park, because it's 60 million against 4 million. They've got a fucking big problem. That 60 million that they think will be in their march to wipe out the whites, that 60 million consists out of at least 11 ethnic groups. And the bigger problem is, in that 60 million is a huge block of cosmopolitan blacks that has been divorced from their tribes and their culture. Now, if the shit hits the fan, and I grew up on the Zululand Highlands, I know about tribal fights and how ugly that can become. The fact of the matter is, if the tribes takes up arms and begin to settle scores, these cosmopolitans are going to be in grave fucking danger. Because when that tribal warriors come, these cosmopolitans will be seen as the enemy. They will be seen as not part of that tribe. And if you're not part of that tribe, you're the enemy of that tribe. And that is what's going to happen here. But these blacks are stupid. They don't understand this. They can't see it. They sit lovely in their flat there in Hillbrow playing with their iPad and their iPhone and their PC and their laptop and tweeting and posting on Facebook and all that cock and wearing fancy clothes and shopping for fancy food and all of that cock, far away from his tribal culture. And he thinks he is now the superior ones. They have evolved. They have shaken off the bonds of their tribes and culture. Most of them flee away from the tribes and their culture because the things that they are doing will never be accepted by the elders of their tribes. So they rather divorce themselves from their tribes. What they don't understand is by divorcing themselves from their tribes and from their culture, they have turned themselves into easy prey for the triple X. And that is what is going on. So, those guys with the dreams in their eyes of 60 million against 4 million, you better fucking wake up. You're going to have a rude awakening. Because if the tribal warriors come to settle the scores, you cosmopolitan, you're going to be in deep shit. And that counts not only for the black cosmopolitans. There's a hell of a lot of white cosmopolitans that's going to be in exactly the same fucking boat. Because the tribes will survive, not the cosmopolitans. That is how it's been right through the centuries. The tribes survived. And in Europe, they're sitting with a big fucking problem. Their tribal component of their communities is voiceless and powerless. And the cosmopolitans is driving their society. Same shit in America. Same shit. So, look again at what this idiot from NATO wants to do. He wants to break up Russia. He wants to break up China. He wants to break up Iran. He wants to break up South Africa. Why? Because he, with his cosmopolitan bloc, wants to be the ruler of everything. But he's got a fucking surprise coming. And I'm not talking about South Africa, because South Africa is a shit show. South Africa does not really warrant its existence. It is currently existing because it is convenient for triple X, because through a few stooges like the ANC top echelon and Ramaphosa, triple X is controlling the whole region. That control needs to be broken. It must break up. We must shatter that control. And that control can only be shattered by tribes. The tribes will shatter it, not the politicians. You must take note of that. All the politicians are tools of triple X. You need to get back to your tribal councils. That is what will make you survive. Please give me a like and a subscribe and share the thing. Thank you for your support.